Welcome, investigator. Evil is on the rise. Crime is escalating. Our mission is to eliminate the crime by exposing evil, examine why it manifests, and highlight the brave souls that confront it every day. Join us as we work together to bring justice to every victim. Welcome to All Things Crime. Here's your host, Jared Bradley.
Hey everybody, it's Jared. Welcome to another episode of All Things Crime. Appreciate you watching and listening. Man, we're having an awesome day today. Hope you are as well. While you're here, make sure to subscribe and hit that little bell so you never miss an episode. And my guest today, if you're watching this on YouTube or Rumble, you probably noticed that the area where you can see me, but normally you would see my guest. Well, today we can't have that. So, and the reason is it will become apparent to you throughout the interview. But my guest today is Aiden Gabor, and I'm going to read this because I think his bio really speaks for itself. It says, Aiden Gabor is a former associate of a notorious crime family, and that crime family is in New Jersey. So that'll tell you a little bit about his background right there. Who, against all odds, found his way back to the side of justice. Approached as a teenager by the DOJ with a daunting ultimatum. Faced life imprisonment for crimes including racketeering, embezzlement, extortion, and conspiracy to commit murder. He chose to become a confidential informant. I can, just in reflecting back on my teenage years, I can't imagine being approached by the DOJ and be given that ultimatum. So I'm excited to hear from Aiden about that. For over a decade, Aiden worked undercover, risking his life to help the DOJ arrest and convict over a dozen high-ranking police officers and politicians. So a little corruption there. His gripping memoir, Conflicting Loyalties, which, by the way, I think all of you, if you're into the true crime, like I think you probably are if you're listening to this show, Conflicting Loyalties by Aiden Gabor, I think would be an amazing read, and I'm looking forward to reading it myself. Offers an unflinching look into his life as a Mafia enforcer and a DOJ informant. This book is a powerful narrative of transformation, shedding light on the darkest corners of the criminal world while ultimately illustrating the redemptive power of faith. Aiden, with that introduction, welcome to the show.
Jared, thank you for having me on. It's an honor to be on with you, sir.
Oh, it's the pleasure's all mine. And I have to say, this is a first. We have never had anybody like you. You know, typically this show, we interview detectives and CSIs, forensic scientists, you know, people that are kind of part of the investigative process of most normal crimes. But organized crime is definitely an area that, I mean, other than exposing politicians, I guess those guys, some of the people in politics are the ultimate in organized crime there, but not so much on the mob level. So, boy, where do we start? One of the things that I have been thinking about in preparing for, you know, talking with you is, how much do you think most normal people understand about the mob? You know, there's all sorts of Hollywood videos out there, TV shows, and things that it almost like glamorizes, if that's even a word, glamorizes the mob life. So why don't you start with telling us, you know, number one, how you actually got involved with being in the mob, and really, especially specifically the New Jersey mob, what that's really like.
You know, what you see in the movies, that's somewhat true. I mean, there's some that you can watch and you get some aspect until you're in there and realize it's more of a family. That's really how it works. You really have loyalty. You know, like I say this every time. I never said or did anything against the crew I ran with, even though they may have thought I had. I have never done anything against them. It's like I said, about bad politicians and bad law enforcement that I really went after, that I knew growing up. Um, as far as in the whole thing, my dad was an associate. So that's what got me into it. My dad was associate one of Cabos, and when I was young, 9, 10 years old, I was really big for my age. And I got in a lot of scuffles. You know, we get in little fights and all that. We had, like, I guess you could call it barbecue, big get together when everybody came in from the old country, and the food was amazing, and you get together. And I got in fights and beat up on kids that were 5, 6 years older than me. And I wouldn't give up. You know, I wouldn't call it Rocky, but I was just dumb enough that you could slap me around, but I'm not going to go. I'm going to find something to hit you with. But I got into that, and then one day Eddie came to me at the car and he goes, "Hey, do me a favor, ride up to we had like a shop which would have like a little like social club in there, so but it was more of a repair shop." Later in life, I learned there was more than that, and I would ride up there. I rode up there one day, and he goes, "Take this package and drop it off, and don't look in it. Don't stop for anybody." I'm like, okay. And you had a respect thing. When anybody older asks you something, you would do it. And I did it. I drove my bike. I dropped off this stuff. And at the time, I didn't realize who these people were. They were politicians mostly, and high law enforcement guys. And I would drop it off. And sometimes they give me something to bring back. And I did this till I was about 12, 13. And I'd sweep around the shop and get around there. We had a guy I didn't put in the book. I did, but we took him out. His name was Nicky. And Nicky he was kind of a different older guy. He started teaching me how to drive, teach me how to shoot a gun, which I thought, oh, wow, this is awesome. But then he taught me how to use an ice pick. And he said, don't use a knife. Knife just slashes. An ice pick will work the best. You put it right here, or you could stab somebody 9, 10 times. Don't be worried about that. Leave it in them because there's not going to leave fingerprints, and run away. You can get another one. They're nothing. Where a knife, you have a better chance because of the way they are. They can figure out who you are, and that's where I learned. I started working my way up. And get in there and you learn. It's just a family. Everybody. We've had some scuffles in there, but as I was learning, you'd see people coming in. And I mean, one time I saw a guy when I was just, I want to say 12, 13. He was getting beat up, and Eddie looked at me. He goes, "Yeah, see what happens when somebody doesn't pay." And I'm like, "Why? You gonna kill him?" No, we're not gonna kill him. We're just letting him know that he needs to pay his debt. And he said something I didn't understand, and they got mad, and I went and hit him and dragged him around, and they pulled me away and said, "No, we don't want to hurt him too bad. We're just giving him like an attention getter." But you learn that as you get up there. And as it went on, I just ended up just doing things for him, Eddie. And then Eddie just took a liking to me. And there's one incident we had a guy, Dominic, which is like his right-hand guy. He was his main enforcer. Dominic really didn't care for me. I don't think he cared for my dad. And he said something to me and threw me against the wall. And I grabbed the stick and I hit him. And I remember this day when he pulled the gun on me and put it on me. And I swear I thought I was dead. I didn't care. And Eddie stopped and said, "Hey, leave the kid alone." And then he pulled me and said, "You got to give respect. You cannot do this. I can't release him. Next time I'm going to let him kick the shit out of you." And that's basically what, I learned growing up. And then I just worked my way up. I guess I started driving for Eddie, and then he took me with Dominic, and he said, "Dominic, show him the ropes." And Dominic's like, "Whatever." And because there's a couple of guys in the crew that were in there. Some were in the crew that shouldn't be. Had a couple of guys that didn't like blood or were like kind of pansy, I guess the word that they would use. But you couldn't because they were there. And I was more of I didn't know it until later in my life. Why? I didn't care if somebody was getting hurt. Blood didn't bother me. Somebody screaming didn't bother me. Like to this day, I can't watch movies with my wife because I laugh at horror movies or someone's getting their head ripped off, their arm snapped off. To me, it's funny. All that stuff is it's just hilarious. It was all my whole life. And, I just worked my way up. And I remember the first time I went with Dominic, I'm talking to him, and he just punched me as hard as he can. And I was in the passenger. And I was like, oh, and he looked at me and goes, we're not even, but that's for when you hit me. You're lucky. And we just went and I collected. I started learning to collect from the local establishments, and no one ever gave any issues. Like you said with the mob movies and stuff like that, they're showing killing people. That really didn't happen. Most time, anybody that got anything really bad to them was poaching. Another crew poached in your territory. That was the problem. It was always against other crews, really bad things. And I learned that, hey, you can't kill people because that's bad business. They're not going to pay you. Sometimes you got to make a point, but not, the ultimate, then it brings heat down on you. We don't want the heat. And we had enough bullshit. So that's really how I worked my way up. And then eventually I worked to Enforcer, where I would go collect money from these. It was mostly degenerate gamblers, because we had prostitution, which they wouldn't let me go out because I was a teenager, so I couldn't go buy any of the girls. But we did the numbers where we would do like betting and stuff like that, loaning money out. The biggest thing we were a chop shop. We'd steal cars and chop the cars up. And that's what we did. That was our big thing. I learned how to steal cars. When I was 16, I stole my first car, and which was easy. And at the time, I had some idiot trying to talk like, "What are you doing? Get over! I'm going to call the police." I beat the hell out of him. To the point he was whining, and I got in the car and drove away. Never heard anything after that. But that's really, really, really what it was. Is I worked my way up, and one of the funniest thing, I wouldn't call it funny. Everybody gets little names in there. And one day we were sitting there eating outside at this little deli, and this guy walks by. It was across the street, and Eddie goes, "Hey, that MFer owes me money." And I just ran after him. And I started kicking the crap out of him before Dominic can get there. I'm beating the crap out of him, kicking him around, smacking him. "You better get the money. We need it now." And Dominic looks at me and goes, "You're still eating a sandwich. Are you shitting me? You're beating the hell out of this guy and you're eating a sandwich? Go back to Eddie." And he's like, "You better," and he goes, "Oh my God, you're still eating. What's a good sandwich? I'm not going to get rid of it. I love sandwich." And so he goes back, goes, "Hey, this little fucker's eating." He goes, "Well, okay, sandwich." I'm like, "What?" "Oh, hey, Aiden Sandwich." I'm like, "Oh, I hate this. To this day, I hated that name. That's what they used to call me. And I hate that name. But I worked my way up to where I would go collect money and all this. And one thing, Eddie's biggest thing that we had back then was we didn't do drugs. And I can't say the exact words, but basically it was because we did stuff with the gangs, because that's with territory, and let the gangs sell to their neighborhood. And we're going to say, we're going to percentage. Anytime we did something, we would give them something. Anytime they did something, they would give us something. And we kind of helped. We had a problem, they would help us out in certain situations. If they had a problem, we helped them out in certain situations. You kind of work together, because if you didn't, you're going to be at war all the time. So we learned to work together with them. Like they would steal cars and bring it to us, and we'd pay them money for it. But that's kind of how it is growing up in that. I just learned that it's respect and it's family. And, all the way up to the day when the FBI came to start arresting everybody, I mean, I thought I'd be there for the rest of my life.
So when you say New Jersey and you say you have a certain amount of territory, I mean, how much territory are you talking about? Is that like all of Newark, or what when you say territory, what are you talking about?
It's a couple towns. I mean, you're not talking a vast amount. We would have, most of the area we had would be considered east. I mean, several towns. It's hard to, I mean, there's no set, like, it's just boundaries. You
Mhm.
had to this street, to this street, to this street, and then they had another crew had it to this street, to that, to whatever. It's just streets. Um, and when you had that, you know, it's just if someone's poaching is when the problems happen. You come and poach in our area, you better have a reason you're there. Um, and people will they try anything to. I mean, we had guys coming in trying to do protection with people in our area, and that was a problem. And we dealt with it in just a way, you know, sometimes the coppers would talk about it, sometimes they send us to talk to them about it. I mean, I can't say exactly what we did, but we did some things that you needed to get done to make sure that your area was good. And at that time, compared to nowadays, that area was so, there was not much crime. There was the gangs weren't doing anything as far as that. They're still mostly they're doing their drug thing. They fought amongst themselves. You know, the neighborhood was safe. You could walk around, and there really wasn't any going on. Nowadays, forget it. You
Yeah,
know,
it's interesting that, um, nowadays it just seems like I don't want to say a petty crime, but it seems like the just kind of the thuggish life is more individual than it is. See, at least that's what it seems like from my perspective as an outsider. Is that kind of the way you see it as well?
yeah. I mean, I saw friends up there, and you know, they're completely changed. They sell drugs now. They really do it. And they still got the things with the gang, but yeah, it's individual now. There's really not that much respect for each other, and it's I would call it chaos, but there's no structure. That's the way I would put it.
Mhm.
There's a little bit. It's not like the old days, you know, when with the feds coming in, they cleaned house. You know, as far as our crew, everybody got arrested. I mean, I was never arrested as a youngster. I got out of it, you know, because we were paying the cops, and that's where I knew that every one of the cops and stuff I knew, and we would give them money, and so they would look the other way, and it's just about everything. And unfortunately, that's the way it was back then. You know, and when the FBI came in, Eddie came to me and says, I'm leaving. You know, everything's happened. You haven't been arrested. You have a chance. I have a chance to play football in college. Go to college and better yourself. I'm leaving. You know, Dominic's already been arrested. Nick's gone. Nick just, I don't know where the hell he ever went. And everything just kind of fell apart. And I said, yes, sir. He says, do me one thing. Just keeping up, just checking on my son now and then. And I said, yes, sir. And his son at the time was like 6. I said, yes, sir. And that was the last time I saw him. And he left. They eventually caught him in Europe. You know, his ex-wife or his wife set him up. And at that time, I went to school. And that's where, like, I guess you could say the second chapter of my life started. When I was at school, these two clowns come with their J.C. Penney suits and told me, I'm like looking at these two, and they told me we need to talk. And that when I saw them, I thought to myself, what do these clowns want? What the? And I was basically, you know, I was almost going to tell them to get up. And but I thought to myself, what do these guys want? So I went with them, and we ended up going to this little, I guess, it had a green roof, just like a little restaurant in the town. And they say, would this order coffee? You want something to eat? I'm like, not really. You know, I'll take some orange juice. And I remember to this day, I mean, it's so vivid that they threw this little envelope for me and said, hey, when you supposed to see some awesome pictures? And I thought to myself, what? So I opened a picture. There's one of my dad with Eddie, uh, my dad with Dominic, with a couple other guys, my dad in Vegas with people. I'm like, oh, okay. You know, they showed me with them and all this, and they're looking at me and they're like, well, you're looking like 7 years in prison for everybody. We got you on this. We know what you did. They showed pictures of me doing things. And I didn't give a shit. I'll be honest. I didn't care about my dad. I don't ever care. I'm like, go ahead, send him to prison. Who gives a shit? Do what you want. Then they threw pictures of my mom and they said, check this one out. Who's this? And I'm looking, they show one with her and Eddie, her with a couple other people, her taking, it looks like money. And they said, well, we're all going to get all of you guys go to prison. And I don't care who in the world could say it. They're not a mama's boy. I was a mama's boy, and that's just the way it was. And when they said about my mom, the whole thing changed. I'm going to tell you right now, my heart, I didn't care about me. I didn't. But my mom went through hell when my parents left, World War II they lived in Budapest during World War II. And 56 revolution, they had to escape because they were partisans. So she went through hell. At the time I didn't know what hell she went through, but I knew that she went through enough. And I'm like, okay, what do you want? Don't worry about it. We'll talk to you, but we want you to think about this. And these two clowns dropped me off. For 2 months, I couldn't do shit. I played like shit. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. And I didn't know what to do. And when they came back, I said, well, I'm not saying a damn thing against any guys I ran with. We don't give a shit about them. How about these pictures? Show me more pictures. Now it's me talking to these politicians and a couple police officers, about a dozen police officers. This is what we care about. And I'm like, whatever. And they go, well, first we'll let you know. We want you to party your way out of school. We're going to give you some money. Go play with the college girls, And before all that, before they drop me off, the one clown looks at me and he goes, hey, you heard of the RICO laws? This is what we're talking about. It's a new law out there. He's like, you're a college boy. Go to the library and look it up. Because I had no clue what this was. And I'm being honest, I was 20 at the time, 19 going on 20. And I went to school late because it's just the way it was. I had some problems in school. And I thought to myself, okay, let me go look this up. And it was a new law. And that's what they were using against me. And I thought, well, they're going to use it against my mom and use it for my dad. Like I said, I didn't give a shit my dad went. And they came back and they said, party your way out of school. And I did. I partied, played with the girls, and then I got home. And after about 2 weeks home, one of them said, hey, let's go meet us at this place. So I met him there. There's a couple towns over. I was in New York. And I'm talking to them, and they're like, here's what we want you to do. We want you to get on this police department and want you to become a police officer. And then we'll tell you after you get on what we want you to do. And I'm like, what? This is what I mean. I go, what am I going to be, undercover? He goes, no, no, we're not putting you undercover. We're going to put you in as an informant, which basically means you're not going to have any backup or anything. So if something happens, you're going to have to figure it all out on your own. But we need you to get information. And I thought to myself, are you shitting me? You want me to be a cop? And they're like, yeah. So I went home. And I thought, okay, whatever, that's what you need. And my mom and dad are sitting. I was at dinner, and I went to my dad, and I said, hey, I don't want to go back to school. It's just not for me. My mom kind of looked. My dad's like, what? What do you mean not going to go back to school? I don't go, what the F are you going to do? Aiden, what are you going to do? And I go, well, I want to become a police officer. my dad hit the ceiling. So you're gonna be a flatfoot? You're gonna be a mother? Oh, you're not my son. Get out of here. Get the fuck. And I went, get out. He threw fucking fork at me. So I went in the other room. My mom's like, oh, Aiden, what are you doing? I go, it's just not for me. But she goes, a cop? I go, yes. She goes, well, you know what? If that's what you want, then that's fine with me. Mm. I'll talk to your father. You just stay away. My dad's like, get the fuck out of this house. I ended up going to my uncle's. he ended up not being a happy camper either. And I went over and they just said, get on this department. And I got on the department. People ask me, what would have happened if you wouldn't have gotten on? Anybody who dealt with the government, they're not very forthcoming of what happens if you don't, other than, hey, this is what will happen to you. But there was never a discussion of what happens if you don't get on. It was get on. And I did at that time, if you were physically fit and you weren't an idiot taking a test, you can get on. And I got on. So after I went to the academy, after several months, I met up with the two frickin' idiots, and they're like, "This is what we need. We have a guy in there. We think he's doing hits for a local, like a local crew for a mop." And I'm like, "What? You're you're kidding, right? No, no. We want you to get close to this guy and get us information on him." And I'm like, "You you guys are fucking idiots." So there's some guy, you think he's hitting people for a crew, and you want me to get close and with my background. Yeah. So you get in there and they have the thing in law enforcement, which is a roll call. And I got on, and if you ever met a person that's the most abrasive personality you ever met in your life, and the first time you meet him, you just want to punch him. That was this. That was this idiot. Nobody liked
I
him.
had some drill sergeants like that.
Yeah, so I mean, this guy was an ass. Nobody liked him, and I was sitting there when the guys that kind of got friendly with me. I go, "Man, I'm gonna go ride with Terry," and everybody's like, "Yeah, that guy's a freaking dick." I don't know, he might be an okay guy. So I started hanging out with him, and we would go out drinking after. Now, there was a part of my problem was this, but there was a start of my problem. He was a gulper. I don't know if you know what the term gulper means when he drinks. He didn't drink. He drank, and he would drink a beer in a matter of 30 seconds. Like, he was not drinking to enjoy the drink. He was just gulping it down.
Mm.
And this guy get pretty lit pretty quick. And he looked at me. I remember one night, and this was like several months I rode with him in a company. He looked at me, and we were drinking one night, and he goes, "I know you." I'm like, "Okay." "No, no, I know you. I know you." I go, "Good, because I know what you did. You ran with Eddie and them." I go, "You know what? That's not like news that nobody knows, but we don't need to talk about that shit." "No, no, I got a crew here I'm running with out here." I'm like, "That's good for you. Just shut the fuck up about it. I don't want to hear it." "No, no, no, you got to tell me. I know. Now, I know shit you've done." "No." I go, "You don't know anything I've done." And he goes, "Let me tell you something. I'm working with this crew." I go, "You know what? We all have our things we're working with. You can do your thing. I don't care." And then we got drinking, and then he starts telling me, he goes, "There was a guy out there. They said they needed him taken care of, and I took care of him." I go, "Why are you telling me this shit?" "Oh, no, because I trust you. You did this. You know what I'm talking about." I go, "And if I did, well, I wouldn't, don't talk about it. Just shut the fuck up."
Mm.
So one night we were drinking, his wife got pretty lit, and she's crying to me about it. She's telling me, "Oh, Aiden, he did this and this." I go, "You need to shut the F about it. Nobody needs to know. You just need to deal with it. Shut up. That's his thing." And she's just like, she's losing her shit. And he's talking to me, and Terry's just telling me stuff. I go, "I really don't care. But you know what? If you didn't," and he starts telling me, I go, "Well, what'd you do? If you're going to be a big talker." And he's telling me how the guy blew his head off, and he was the first one on scene. Wow. Okay, you can get pretty kinky. You get your own shit. And I sat there, okay, and that was it. And I went and told, and I met up a couple weeks later with these two idiots. I said, "Hey, he told me we did. If you need me to testify," he goes, "No, we don't want to testify." I go, "You know what? But if you need it, pump the wife. She's done. She's already lost it. She's ready to talk. She can't take anymore." After several times, I have to keep telling her to shut up. But if you go over, she's going to turn like when to believe. If she comes to you, you can use it. And I go, "If you need me to testify," like, no, because that means you're one and done. We've got other things for you. Thank you for the information. They pumped his wife. She turned on him, and he ended up going to prison. So after that was done, I'm like, okay. I talked to him a couple months later. I get the phone call that he got arrested, that he was on. Everybody starts talking, "Oh my God, you ran with him." And I go, "I didn't know this shit. What the hell?" So it's like the term rats when the ship sinks or leaving the ship. Well, several officers left. So they told me leave the department. And I'm like, okay. So it didn't look any. So I left, and they told me go to this department and get on this department. And I'm like, the Bluffs? And they're like, "Yeah." And I go, "I grew up there. That's where I grew up. That was our terror." They go, "Yeah, we know. We want you to get in a department over there." You guys are assholes. No. And they're like, no, do you have, does your go now? You're at the time I was like 22, and I still don't, but I thought, you know what do you want me to do? We got some things over there, same thing you're doing here. And I said, no, do it. And so I went over there, and I remember getting on, put my application, and I get called by the mayor. Now I know this clown. And he looks at me, and I show up, and there's the commissioner, and I look at him, and he's like, Aiden, how you doing? I'm like, yes, sir. And he go, yeah, you want to be a police officer out here? What makes you want to do that? Because, wait, you were another department. Yeah, shit happened. I don't want to be there anymore. You get caught up in any shit when FBI or whoever shows up. Oh, I get it. We get it. But if you got a department here, are you going to follow the line? You going to toe the line? And, I go, yes, sir. You can do what you've been told? I go, yes, sir. Whatever you need me to do, I'm going to do. You know what? I believe you. You're good stock. We know you from your younger years. You know us. So yeah, you know what? We can use somebody like you. I said, yes, sir. Whatever you need me to do. So I got on that department, and my best friend growing up happened to be a police officer out there. His name's Don, and Don's like, holy shit, you want to get him in the department? I go, yeah. He goes, really? He goes, you were at so and so, and I go, yeah. This shit hit the fan, so I wasn't going to stick around with all the feds running around. He kind of laughed. He goes, well, you'll have fun here. You know everybody. And that's how that one started. And my years with them is where I took down. And the funny part is, I think that the whole reason that they did this to me is how do you get rid of snakes in the snake pit? You throw a snake in there. So you look like one of the idiots. And they trusted me. They knew me as a kid. They knew shit I'd done. And I would get information. I got them on several politicians, commissioners, and police officers. And they end up going to prison. And at that point, that was that part of my life where I was one under that. And the funny part is they didn't make it they didn't make it hard. There was several times that they would point guns at me. A couple, I'm like, what are you doing here? There's one time we were walking up the back, and one of the chiefs, one of the top lieutenants, looked at me as we're going to stare, and I turn around. I'm on the bottom stair. He turns at me, and I'm looking straight down the Glock, right through. I could see the riflings, and he's like, "What the fuck are you doing here?" And I looked at him, and I said, I had to think, and my thinking that came to mind is, "What are you doing, motherfucker?" I go, "I know you growing up." He's like, "I know. What are you using?" I heard what happened in the other apartment. I go, "What the fuck happened there?" I wasn't involved in any of that shit. I go, but let me explain something. I know you, and you were, I was part of a machine, and you were a cog. You could be replaced at any time, but I was a machine. If something happened with me, the machine could break down. You were jealous and want to be one of the nice. If you want to pull that trigger, pull that motherfucking trigger. Sorry, but pull the trigger and find out. I'm sure you get away, but let's see how far you get. Remember who people I know. You know who I know. So if you want to play this game, let's play. I got my own shit I'm doing here. I got my own things going on. You worry about what you want to do. I'm going to worry about what I want to do. And then we'll get along happily. Stay out of my way, I'll stay out of yours. And he looked at me and goes, all right, all right. And we went upstairs. And they were sitting there talking. I guess the commissioner came up in there. My buddy Don was getting something up there, and he heard them talking. And he came to me after he goes, hey, frickin' so-and-so and commissioner were talking. They were saying that you were going to toe the line to others. What the hell does that mean? And I'm like, Don, I don't know. I told him I'd be a good, good police officer and stuff like that. And I go, oh, okay. The funny part is I got a lot of information from Don. Don would get information, not knowing he was giving me information. I told him about that. We had a talk about 6 years ago. He never knew. He kicked the shit out of me when he found out that I used them for information to put these guys in prison because he knew these guys.
Oh, bad.
But Don and I talked 4 times a week, and we were best friends growing up, and he forgave me. He understood, and that's really my second part. The third part, I went to a casino. They wanted me to check these guys. I go, these guys are a bunch of frat boys. Nobody's doing anything illegal here. And then it got to the point after close to 15 years total they came to me now, throughout all this, I got injured, I got hurt. Um, Several times somebody attempted to shoot me. They did shoot me, but when you read the book, you'll see what happened in that part. Um, and Don saved my life with that one. And I got stabbed a couple times. And I was a police officer when I was younger, and I I survived all that shit. But throughout this whole time doing this, after I started on my first time with Terry, I started becoming an alcoholic. And I became a gulper. I got to the point that when you have the family, you don't go against the family. So I was having issues with that, but I never said anything against them. But then when you get in law enforcement, you got this thing called the blue line. You don't cross the blue line. You got these blinders on, almost. You don't go against your brothers and sisters in law enforcement. And I don't know if you understand what I mean by that.
Oh, I totally
And
do. Absolutely.
and I was getting these bad dreams. I became a bad alcoholic, and I never was afraid to die. I've never been afraid. I know no. I'm going to tell you this day: no man, no supposed ghost beings that's ever scared me. Only two people in my life have scared me. That's my mother. She scared the shit out of me. Later on, I found out why. There was something about her. And then my current wife, she scares the shit out of me. So those are two people that's always scared me over my life. And I got to the point that I was binges, just drinking binges. And I remember seeing vividly the St. Michael with the flaming sword going, "You have betrayed your brothers, sisters," and coming at me and swiping at me and say they're going to kill me, that they're attacking me, that you betrayed, you're lower than whatever, you're just horseshit. And they're screaming at me, and I do this, and I remember, I don't know, I'm going to say a couple hundred times, I had a 357 Magnum. I would put a round in there and spin the chamber and block it and pull the trigger, put it in my head, put it in my mouth, underneath my chin. It never went off. And I know of at least couple other times that I woke up with the gun next to me, 2 or 3 rounds in there. And I was trying to kill myself. But for some reason, God said, "You are not going to die. We've got other things for you." So that whole time in there, betraying the blue line, that's where the book's name, Conflicting Loyalties, came from, because it did. My whole life was basically, I was told, you can't tell anybody. You can't tell your parents. The minute somebody finds out, you're going to jail. And then when I started doing law enforcement and learned, yeah, okay, they're kind of full. I thought, oh my God, I'm doing good. I'm getting rid of these bad guys. They shouldn't be doing what they're doing. And some of the things I see them done, okay, are a little worse. Some of the things maybe I've done, you know. And I thought I was doing good, but this betrayal of betraying police officers. So, and the way you look at it, and you've been doing you talk a lot of detectives and stuff. One bad police officer makes 100,000 good ones look bad. That's how the media portrays it. That one bad one, oh, they're all bad. They're all bad. No, until you walk. Everybody needs to go and walk in the shoes for one day of a police officer in a big city and see the shit that they got to go through to understand why that's a high suicide rate. I mean, I tried killing myself, but I did it because thought I was betraying everybody.
Oh, I tell people all the time, Aiden, that you know what? Until you've actually gone on a ride along and actually seen what these guys go through, uh, don't criticize them. I mean, I I'm not sure how many other episodes you've listened to or seen out of this podcast, but I interview detectives and people that walk the line all the time, and all of these guys, in my opinion, just by putting on the uniform, deserve an initial level of respect, and then obviously how they act from there. There's always going to be bad ones, but for the most part, like what you said, the vast majority of them are good guys, and they just being willing to put on a uniform, especially in today's society and this environment that they're in now. It's never been more hostile to law enforcement, and so yeah, I'm a huge advocate for law enforcement. But yeah, you know what? They got to work hard to weed out the bad ones, but the rest of them are just good people.
Yeah, yeah, I
Just trying
agree
to do
with
a
you.
job.
I agree with you. I'm a bad. I mean, yeah, putting on that uniform is a big responsibility, you know. Um, and people don't understand the cesspool of life that they deal with. You know, there's good and there's bad. You know, I learned that. I learned that being on the streets and doing. I still did the job, but I was doing other things on the side. And you're right. It's maybe of the very bad ones, maybe 1% of all the law enforcement in the whole United States. Then you got some of them that I guess you can say, with the authoritative that they have, they abuse that part of it. They abuse their authority, and that's another maybe 10%, if that. 5% of all law enforcement in the United States. But that's what everybody goes after, those small percentages. They don't understand the brothers and sisters, what they do. It's almost like my friends that were military. I was never in the military, but the things that, what I don't get in society is how the military and their ex-veterans are treated. You get put in there. I had friends of my Marines, and I talked to them, and they teach them kill, kill, kill. Go out there and kill, kill. And then when you're done, go be a normal person in society. After we taught you to do nothing but kill people. And
Yeah.
then they're not understood. And then they wonder why they have problems and get hooked on drugs or have psychological PTSD. It's because of what they've seen, what they've gone through, you know. But people who have done what they did are crucifying them as if they're all bad, and they're not. The military veterans are we need to respect them in law enforcement, first responders, because without them, the chaos would be here. We wouldn't be where we are today if it wasn't for that. And I don't
Oh yeah.
understand how people go get that. I understand. I did bad things. I was a bad person growing up. I
Mhm.
get that. I mean, I was not a good father. I wasn't a good husband to my first wife. And I'll admit that, but she wasn't the greatest either. So, but that doesn't mean any. But, when I came out of the dark into light, and I see this, but I think that, nowadays, I met the love of my life. She's kind of straightened me out. And my whole life, my buddy Don, who went to a Catholic school, said, "Hey, you need a religion." I used to say, "Screw you. Religion is stupid." I used to say, "I work for the other guy. I collect souls for the other guy." And then one day I was having night terrors. I was throwing my wife around at night, not hurting her, but just putting her down, handcuffing her, screaming, punching the wall. Bad night terrors. She called Don and my buddy Sam, said, "You guys, hey, these are my two best friends. You got to come talk to him. There's something going on with him." And that's where all this with the book came out. And my buddy Don came as long as he could, and we talked. He found out about 80% of everything. That's where he found out, kicked the crap on. We had our little love session. And then my buddy Sam showed up, and he stayed a little bit longer. But Sam was a very religious person. And they said, "Hey, read this book." I'm like, "I don't read great. Don't give a shit. Try read it. Even have Sabrina read it to you." Sabrina goes, "I'll read it with you." Because I have dyslexia. There was my issues at school. And so I read it. It was a Baha'i faith. And I read it and I'm thinking to myself, what is this? And then, by faith, men and women are equal. In some Catholic and whatever, women are subservient to the man. In a Baha'i faith, everybody's equal. Even, if you're even Catholic, but you're black, white, pink, purple, green, whatever, we all bleed red. So we're all one. I never really believed that. But now reading this, I'm reading, okay. And one day I'm reading it, doing it myself. I'm out in our backyard and it's sunny. And I look up and I felt something. And I'm like thinking to myself, what is this? Ooh, I felt something inside. I come inside, Sabrina goes, "What's wrong?" I go, "Nothing. There's a feeling I have." She goes, "You're reading the book." I go, I got this feeling. I hate this feeling. It sucks. I don't want this feeling. I don't know what the hell this is going on, but I don't like the way I feel inside. What do you feel? I go, a warmth. I don't know. I can't describe. And so I kept reading. She goes, you're getting faith. You're getting spiritual." I'm like, "Go to hell." I kept reading, and then I believe in the Baha'i faith, and I became very spiritual. and understood that, you know what, we can redeem for what we've done. But eventually I'll have to get in front of somebody and whatever my next life or whatever my next as plain as the Baha'is put it, that I have to work harder to be a better person because I put myself here. And I understand and I accept that. But you know, I learned all that. I mean, my life went from one end to the other end, coming out of the dark into the light. Um, you know, basically I was in the shadows doing things that you shouldn't be doing. And then coming back, learning that, you know what, law enforcement's good. They're out there, they're protecting us. Without them, this place would be anarchy. And I've come to where I am now. I found I have ALS, and I always put down that, God wouldn't let me kill myself. They got a sense of humor. We're going to not let you kill yourself so you can have ALS and feel like when you pass, what that's going to be like. That fun part of your life's just coming.
Mm.
And I thought, I accept it, and God's got a sense of humor that, you know what, you will pay for what you've done. And with ALS, it's going to eventually destroy me. And I understand it and I have accepted it. So that's kind of my story in a nutshell. Really kind of a up and down, screwed up life. But again, I would never change it. I don't have any regrets because I will not be where I'm at today. I may have changed some things that I've done, may have not done, but as far as everything else, I am at a peaceful acceptance right now.
Well, that's definitely a good place to be. And I find it interesting that, when you look back on, and I think everybody eventually has to do this kind of self reflection, just kind of look back and say, you know what? Yeah, these are all mistakes. And one way or another, you have to pay for those mistakes, whether it be through, uh, compensation to the other person or repentance and whatever. But ultimately, all of those decisions that you made in the past, like you said, created the person that you are now. And without the experiences that you just described to us, I don't think your story would be near as potent, and maybe it wouldn't reach as many people. So to me, it's kind of it's all encompassing. And yeah, it's never too late to change is another learning lesson really that I think we all need to go through. And for me, that's one of the greatest things about your story. I mean, I don't think very many people at all can relate with what you were talking about earlier about being, the tough kid that would just, run up, and if somebody owed money, just start beating the crap out of them with, while holding your sandwich. That's, that's in that's a great story. Um but no, I applaud you for going through the change that you needed to in order to become the man you are now. But before we close up here, I want to ask just one scenario when you like tell us about the maybe the hardest core politician that you helped bring down or out of being the informant, and then the worst corruption that you ever saw.
You know,
Talk about how you helped bring that person down.
oh, that was easy. The main one was a mayor, and you know, I he was hardcore. He was doing a lot of um, like cleaning out areas, using muscle to get rid of people where they, Section 8 housing, let's get rid of them, close it down so you can build up and put better housing in there. So you had to get rid of the people. And yeah, I mean, I was, at the time they started doing that, I was too young to be part, but I saw it happening where they get rid of it. And that's where I knew, now this politician I happen to know real well. Um, and yeah, he was very big in politics in the state, and yeah, he ended up serving a lot of time. He passed away just when after he got out of prison, And the first time I saw him, um, he was related to my first wife. So when I met him the first time, he closed the door and he said, "Hey, Aiden, don't say anything about how we met before and all this." I go, "What are you talking about, sir? I don't know you till I just met you today. Thank you." And that was it. He never realized I'm the one that ended up helping to get information. And he was telling me shit, and I was there for most of the stuff he did. So it was easy for him. He was the easy one. Some of the other hardcore guys, a couple guys were involved in the homicides and stuff half these guys in here, they want to get them on the RICO statutes more than anything else, because they used to tell me, well, it's a hearsay because it's already proved as this, and since law enforcement was, this, and that's a state one, but we want direct racketeering, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, I saw him do it, but that's your word against his. So I've seen some very bad things that people did. But the hardcore, law enforcement guys were working with the gang, giving them information, and they were telling where the other gang members were being released, and they would end up disappearing and stuff. So those are some of the ones I helped put away.
Yeah. It's interesting to me that I always find that seemingly the people that have the most power without truly earning it. And what I mean by that is, if a baseball player, for example, makes it all the way to the major leagues, that guy has gone through all the refining that he has to go through in order to, make his way through everything from little league all the way up. He's worked his entire life to get to the place where he is. And, people that earn it respect it. And a lot of I've just found that politicians, for example, not all of them are bad by any means, but some of them rise to they ascend to that level of power so rapidly that they haven't truly earned it, and therefore they don't really respect it. And somebody like a mayor of a large city, man, they've got a lot of power over people's lives. They have these massive budgets. They have all these tools, all these other people that work for them that they can basically order them to do a lot of things. And to me, that's the I don't know if it's the ability, I don't know what word exactly I'm looking for, but the potential to be corrupted at that, with that level of power when they haven't fully earned it. I just see it just, well, I shouldn't say see, it just seems that that is a path to corruption, and unless they're truly grounded in, both spiritually and morally, uh, otherwise there's just a potential to get corrupted really quickly. So based on that, from your scenario, am I off base, or do you think I'm on target here?
Oh, you're absolutely on target. Let me tell you, to get where they are, I don't like politicians. I don't like the government. That's me. But going through the shit I went through, politicians, I think most of them got to where they are because you've got to step on toes. You've got to destroy people to get you to be number one. It's not like you're right, like an athlete that has that ability and went through the weightlifting, the running, to get there. These people use other people to get what they want. It's a means and end for them. And most politicians will use that. And once they get in power, it's that, hey, I'm going to give you some money and you go my way. And there's so much money being thrown at these people that, as a human being, most people, unless they are, that great of a person, are going to take the money, and once you take that money one time, they own you.
Yeah.
They got you. And I think most politicians are one of those ones that are straddling the door between going to prison and staying out of prison, because they know how to work that line. There's a way to work that line, and you're going to get money. And to get the power, just like anything else, you got to step on toes. You've got to push people out of the way to get your power. And I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's once they get it, they don't want to get rid of it. You have that power. Do you want to give it up? I mean, most people don't.
Well, I
Until you
think
hit the
of
point you're
yeah,
too old and I don't want it anymore. But once you have it, I mean, look at some of these politicians we have in Congress. What, they've been in there 30 years, 40 years? They don't want to give it up,
no.
and they wonder why their areas are maybe screwed up. And I don't like politics. I'm going to be honest. I don't watch TV. I only watch documentaries. I mean, I may watch some podcasts and stuff, but I watch documentaries, YouTube. I don't watch TV because I don't like politics, because dealing with politicians as I have, because I think they're all bad. Because I know what they do to get to where they have. They use, hey, muscle to get certain things done. Hey, get rid of these people, or it's going to cost you this much. No problem. All right, they're gone. You know, and what they would do, like we did, is you give the money to the gangs, use the gangs, use other people. It's the money trail since it goes down. Yeah, like with the book itself, I didn't want to write this book. I'll be honest with you. It took my buddy Sam and Don to talk me a good year to do this as therapy. They started out the book as therapy to talk about it, And then we talk about, like, I told you I was afraid of my mother. Well, my mother was a partisan. Now, only a couple of years ago, my dad and I hadn't talked for like 10 years. So back about 8 years ago, my dad and I had a talk. And my mom grew up as a partisan. During World War II, they were like 11 years old, my age. And when the Russians came in, and the Russians did things to my mom and her sisters that, no woman should ever have to go through. My mom was so much vengeance. My dad knew my mom. They were together back when they were 10 years old. She would go out at night, and my dad said she scared everybody, but she'd go out at night and they're like, "What are you doing?" She goes stand there, Russians come up, say, "Hey, little girl, what are you doing?" And she's like, "I don't understand you." And as they're talking to him, and there's 2, 3 of them, she pulled out this dagger. My dad said it was good. It was like a long spear, and just stabbed him through the neck, a bunch of them, and run off. Maybe on the ground, and one move, she stabbed again. My dad said, I lost count of how many soldiers she did that to in Russia. She would throw Molotov cocktails on the tanks. As the guys were coming out, because it was so heated, she'd stab them. And I read in a book that's what your parents do, it could be hereditary towards you. What your parents do as a young age, you can get hereditary toward. I never knew this about my mom until about 8 years ago. And before that, I was diagnosed. I was, go see a psychologist. And I had no empathy for people. I don't. I don't care if you're getting hurt. Unless you're a family member or a good friend, I don't care what happens to you. And I work against that every day with religion. And I'm borderline psychotic or a sociopath. I'm sorry, not like sociopath, because growing up the way I grew up. But they say that could be from your family, what my mother did. And there was always something about my mom that always scared me about her. Like, there's something different. My mom, even my buddy Don goes, "Man, your mom scares the shit out of me." I go, "I don't know. She's a great cook. I mean, that's my mom. She mothered me. I was an only child." So, yeah, talking about like with society, we have a lot to work towards to become a better place. And I like another thing with the book is I want people to know that there's people out there to stop bad law enforcement, bad politicians, that they are trying to weed them out. My book based on that was more of the therapeutic, but it came out, my story. I didn't put everything in there. I put about 70%. And like if you read the beginning of the book, and I'm going to tell you this right now, and you're going to be looking, it says all people, places, and things have been changed to protect the guilty. So places, names, you had to change names, you had to do that. This is all lawyer shit. But everything was to protect the guilty. Anybody in my book is guilty. They're all guilty of something. I don't have anybody in there that's not. You, my wife's guilty of something, and that's how I put it. My current wife, which is Sabrina,
Mm.
that we have all done something in our lives that we may not have been proud of, but it's a I don't know. It's a struggle for humanity to work better as human beings, because if you look at the world right now, we are really hurting spiritually. We need that spiritually thing. We need to back our military. We need to back our first responders and not shit on them as they've been doing. Especially these whatever they're called now, the 20-year-olds that think that not never doing it and yelling that I don't know about you, but this is me mine. I might piss off people. I still don't get why nowadays we have to have my safe place. I thought police station and the firehouse that would be my safe place, not in the universities where you have to have a room for my safe place. I don't understand that, because I think that as a teacher or that they should be protecting you and not going against you, and that's why you have to have some place to go. If that is, then we really got to work as society to make it better.
Yeah. Well, I can't disagree with that even a little bit, just because you look at kind of where we are, and it's sad because you think about 9/11 was just what 23 years ago. I
Yeah.
mean, I have kids that are older than that, and
Me too.
I know the country because of the absolute trauma and the shock of being attacked by those Islamic terrorists, brought the entire country together. And for a long time, we were united as a country. We were proud of being Americans, and gradually since then, um, we've just been divided further and further into small sections, and our differences have been highlighted to the point that nowadays it's difficult to even relate to very many people at all. And if you're in a different part of the country, or of a different race or a different gender, it's just like everybody's been separated. And I think a lot of that is just the rhetoric of politics, and it drives me crazy. And it's sad because I have an American flag right behind me, and I always keep it there, no matter who I'm talking to, just because as a veteran, I'm super proud of it, and I'm proud to have served, and everything about me comes from that. And you know, I think until we set aside our differences and look to what we have in common with each other as opposed to our differences, uh, it's just going to get worse. And it scares me that here we have this magnificent country, and despite all of the stupid things that we do, like you know, I have to say, Aiden, you know what? Um, I know you were part of your culture, and that's just how you grew up. But I wouldn't wish that on anybody. It's just it's almost like you weren't really allowed to be a kid, which is kind of sad. But again, that's what made you you. So you can't go back. But at the same time, how do we make the best of it, right?
Absolutely. And, thank you for serving for our country. And yes, I have American flag up in my house in several places. I put it up in the front of my house. If you got a problem with it, we can have a chat. That's how I look at it. You
Yeah.
need to be proud of this country. And yes, it has been the politics rubbed down. The problem is people, and my last little part is people want to keep racism in the forefront because they make money off of it. And that's what it is. The more race, it keeps us divided. They want politics and religion don't go around. They don't believe in religion because they want to control people. You know, being a
Mm.
veteran, this whole thing of getting rid of the guns, our rights. Well, if you look at what I guess you can say in 1919, what's his name did in Italy, they took their guns. Germany in 1931, they took your guns. Once they take their guns, they control you.
Yeah.
That's how it is. And unfortunately, history always is a ball. It comes back around. And there's always somebody who wants to be in control. We go like 9/11. You were spot on with 9/11. It brought us together, never stronger than we were after 9/11 because we went after those terrorists with guns blazing. And then look at Israel. This anti-Semitism. They're doing what we did, except that they're right next to each other. We would have done the exact same thing as them, because if you don't get rid of and I'm very spiritual, but if you don't get rid of it, it's just going to start over again, and that's what they're doing. And the Hamas is using the Palestinians as basically a shield. They don't care if they die. That's what terrorism is.
Yeah.
And our country is hurting. We need to get back together. And it's the few that are controlling the rest. And it's funny because everybody leaves California. Why? Because of all the shit that's going on, because they're politicians. But then they go to other states and vote what they did in California. So it's going to start the process over again. And that's how I feel with that. An American, anybody that does stuff to American flags, you know what? My parents grew up in a communist country, grew up with Nazism, grew up with when Stalin came in. Send them over to a communist country for a month or two, see how they like it. They don't understand that that's going to this cancel. I don't like that. I'm going to tear down that. I don't like that. Get rid of the Civil War. It happened. All right. Mm-hmm. Don't tear down the South has their thing. Why are we tearing down everything? That's another thing I'm looking at. That we need to stick together. And until we decide to become Americans again, we're hurting as a country. And I'm going to be honest with you, Tara, I don't know how you're going to fix it. I mean, it's going to be a long, long process. And I have friends of mine that live in other countries. America's a joke to them. Our president is a joke to these other people. And that's a problem. The United States used to be strength, fear. Hey, we don't want to bring the wrath of the U.S. on. And nowadays, what are they going to do? Unfortunately, that's how it is right now. And we need to work. We need to, my last part too is, and you're a veteran. Why is veterans underneath illegal aliens, when veterans should be a top person? They should be number one. The illegal aliens, they shouldn't vote. They shouldn't get Social Security. Why are they getting that, and the veterans are getting whatever shit on, and not get the help that some of them need? I talked to, my dad's a veteran, and we kind of started. I've gone to a couple of the what do you call it, the Legion halls, and I've talked to veterans, and some of the stuff they went through, Vietnam veterans I've talked to, and I've talked to guys that were in Desert Storm, the stuff they've seen. And they're like, well, we tried to go get help, but you know how the VA is. I go, no, I don't know how the VA is. And when you guys need help, talk. I will talk. I talk to several veterans all the time. I'll talk. You need someone to talk to, I'll talk to you. Don't do what I do. Don't try and kill yourself, because that's not going to solve anything.
Yeah.
I know that now. But our veterans
I can speak
should
from
be
personal
first.
experience that the VA's the VA's crap. It's anyway. All right.
Yeah, I know.
Well,
I'm sorry
Aiden,
about that.
no,
Jared, thank you so
can keep
much,
going
sir.
forever about that. So let's let's end it here with just your, focused on your story. I fascinating, man. It's, there are so many people out there that have just absolutely fascinating stories like you did. I mean, some people are just you look at some of these immigrants that have come over from North Korea and things like that, and the struggle that they had to go through in order to come here and become Americans. That's equally fascinating, but everybody's story is unique, and I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing yours. So again, folks, Aiden Gabor, his book is called Conflicting Loyalties. So make sure to get out there and get a copy of it. And Aiden, I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much, Jared. And if you want to get the book, you go to conflictingloyalties.com. It'll tell you every genre and everything you get it off of, but conflictingloyalties.com is where the book is right now.
Okay. Appreciate that.
Thank
you have a
Jared.
great day,
Again,
sir.
thank you for serving our country, sir. And again, thank you. It's an honor being on.
Thanks for joining us. Your attention today brings us one step closer to exposing and eliminating the evil that brings crime to our communities. Hit subscribe and share this episode. Together, we will bring justice to every victim.